Good evening, everyone. I'm calling Monday, March 6, 2023 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Tonight's Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting will be held in person and virtually by using Zoom. As co-chair, I'll be leading the Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when invited throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person or join via online Zoom. If attendees express audio problems, we suggest you leave the meeting and then rejoin. This has usually fixed the issue. Additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at www.burnsvillemn.gov in the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is available for viewing on BC TV and on the city's website. If you're unable to participate this evening and would like to submit public testimony, I encourage you to email your comments to city staff or mail your comments directly to City Hall. You may also call into the meeting at 651-372-8299. For each public hearing, I will open up a time when callers may speak to that item, and we will give more instructions at that time. Your call will be muted until that time. Please note there may be a slight delay due to the differences in technology. If speaking by phone, please mute your computer since there may be a delay. Now on to the agenda. The first item of the Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting tonight is adoption of the agenda. Do any members of the commission have any changes to the agenda?
No.
Staff, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Nothing from staff.
May I have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
I move to accept the agenda.
And a second?
Second.
All right, motion passed. All right, next item is approval of the minutes. We'll consider approval of the February 6, 2023 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners, are there any changes to the minutes?
No changes.
Staff, are there any changes to the minutes?
Nothing from staff.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion passed. All right. Third item, citizen comments. Is there any members of the public on Zoom meeting who wish to speak?
I'm seeing none.
All right. If there is no one, we'll move on. Fourth item, Civic Center Park Pollinator-Friendly Lawn Installation Presentation. I'd like to invite Linnea up to present.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linnea Weir, and I am the Senior Natural Resources Technician with the City of Burnsville. And I am here just to give an informational presentation about the Civic Center Park Pollinator Lawn Installation, which is a demonstration project that we are planning for later this year. And so I have just a pretty simple things that I'm going to cover today, give a little background on pollinator lawns, then go through some of the goals of the demonstration project, and then get into some project specifics. And then there will be time for questions at the end. All right, so what is a pollinator lawn? Basically, it is a mixture of fine fescue grasses as well as low-growing flowers. A lot of the time, these flowers include Dutch white clover, which is the white flower you can see in the image, and then self-heal, creeping thyme, or ground plum, which are other low-growing flowers. Ground plum is native to Minnesota. You can install a pollinator lawn by doing like a completely new lawn, installing these seeds from onto bare dirt, or you can do an overseeding where you're installing these seeds into existing turf grass. And basically what you're creating is something that looks a lot like a normal traditional lawn. Although it has some differences. It has these flowers in it. It's a low mow kind of situation. So just because of the nature of these different fescues and the flowers, you don't need to mow it as frequently as a normal lawn. They also require less watering than a normal lawn, and besides like an initial starter fertilizer when you're first doing the project, you don't need to fertilize it as a maintenance thing each throughout the growing season. So you can see in this picture, there is, up close you can see that there's these flowers, but then as you look into the distance, it's, it looks mostly like a normal lawn. So some of the benefits, the reason of pollinator lawns, the reason why we're bringing this subject up is that they are a way to maintain the traditional aesthetic of a traditional lawn, but while also providing some benefits to pollinators such as bees. So the University of Minnesota, they did some research and on some sites in Minneapolis parks, and where they had installed bee lawns, and they found that just on the white clover itself, they found 56 different species of bees, and so that's 15% of the species that are known to Minnesota. So this clover is providing a resource for not just one species of bee, but actually quite an array, a good diversity of bees. So I did want to mention at this point that, this is not like a proposal for a replacement for any kind of native plants or native plantings, which are definitely going to provide the most benefits to pollinators, and not just pollinators, but other native wildlife, as well as, infiltration of water to prevent or to reduce runoff. So the pollinator lawns are, as I've mentioned, beneficial because they are kind of combining these different benefits, still being able to use it like a normal lawn, and then as well as providing benefits to pollinators. And then just with these other sustainability aspects like reduced mowing, watering, and fertilizer. So the topic of pollinator or bee lawns has kind of come more into the public conversation over the last few years for a couple of different reasons. For one, the University of Minnesota has been doing some research, and then they've been putting out publications and different information to the public. So through their bee lab, so they've done research on the benefits. They've also done some research into like the public perception aspect of it, because that's an important part. Incorporating this new kind of land use into highly used public spaces like parks with lawns. There's also this state grant program called Lawns to Legumes, which has been offering grants to people in Minnesota for to do different kinds of pollinator projects, which include bee lawns. And so that's been a way that this subject has kind of been promoted in, to the public. And then here within Burnsville, the Natural Resources Department has put on a workshop over the last 4 years called Lawns Reimagined. And over the last 4 years, we've had close to 240 attendees. So there's definitely some interest within just our city here in this topic, and people who are curious about what this is all about. So this specific project, it is going to address a few goals that were outlined specifically in the sustainability plan of 2020, as well as our natural resources master plan from 2022. So for example, the natural resources master plan, there is a goal that's outlined to partner with our parks department to install a pollinator lawn by 2023. So we're working to, just meet those goals that are outlined in that document. And then that's within the framework of our general goals of trying to increase pollinator habitat within the city, whether that's through natural areas or in this case through a new kind of project. So with it being a new project, and calling it a demonstration, we're trying to demonstrate different ideas to the public. We want to engage with the public, and then it's also an opportunity to kind of test out how this kind of a project, how these methods work as we look towards potentially doing them in the future. So getting into some of the specifics, I've been doing a bit of background research through the University of Minnesota, informational interviews with contractors, discussions with our park staff and recreation staff, And just trying to figure out what kind of plans are going to make the most sense for our city and for, use staff time appropriately, be cost effective, things like that. And as well as, methods that are going to be the most successful. So we are in the process of still soliciting formal quotes, so that will get kicked off in the near future. But we're expecting it to be around $4,000 for this target site. But again, that's still not totally for sure what that cost will be, but $4,000 expected. So the site that was chosen, this was done in conversation with park staff and recreation staff as well. We chose a site by the Market Garden here near City Hall. And this is kind of a visible site, central location, but not heavily used, as opposed to like a ball field or a soccer field or something like that. And let's see, and so we are going to, you can see there's two different colors here on the map. Orange, that's the smaller section, and then purple, which is a larger section. So we're going to aim to split this project into two. So we'll have in early fall, around Labor Day, do an overseeding into the existing turf grass in that orange section. And then during the establishment of the seeds, Natural Resources staff will be maintaining the watering while it's establishing. Then, and then at that time will be a good chance for us to, promote this on social media, engage with the public, do some outreach to invite people to come check it out and see how the project is going. Then the purple section is going to be what we call dormant seeded, and so that will happen in early November. This is after the growing season has ended. And what happens is you install the seeds in the area, again, over the existing turf grass. And then it isn't until the next year, the next growing season, that they actually germinate. And so this is a way to reduce the staff time that's involved. So it doesn't require watering to happen right after you install the seeds. So as we're looking toward potentially doing this at other sites in the city in the future, there may be no water that's accessible to, a spigot to attach a hose to do watering. In addition, the watering might be time consuming if you're trying to replicate this project to other sites. And so the dormant seeding is an option for kind of reducing some of that staff time. So we're gonna use these two different methods and then see what works best for the future. And then just my last bullet point here, I keep saying that you overseed it into existing turf, and so the first step is to scalp the turf. That's to get it really low to the ground, and then you do some aeration of the soil, and then you apply your seed. So that's some of the project specifics. And then finally, I mentioned we'll keep the public engaged, social media, some signage, maybe do an open house, but we'll see what specifically happens as we get closer to the project. So I think that that's all, and I'll answer any questions that anybody has. Now or at a later date too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
All right, so in doing this, and on the surface, it sounds fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the question I have, is there a risk of some of the invasive species of plants that Burnsville experiences that will creep into this area? And how do we manage that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So because I didn't mention that, this area, pollinator lawns are maintained very similarly to a normal lawn, where you are still mowing it, just less frequently and at a little bit of a higher height. And so because the site will still be mowed, that would definitely help to reduce a lot of weeds and I wouldn't expect invasive species to seed into the site, partly because of the mowing. Also because with this project, we're not starting from scratch with bare dirt. because there's already good turf grass there, I think that that will provide, it'll be much harder for even weed seeds or invasive species to kind of creep in and establish themselves.
Does
So.
this attract particular types of bees?
Well, yeah, so it does attract honeybees, but it also attracts native bees, which is what some of the University of Minnesota research found. And I don't have, I had the number 56 species, but I don't know more specifically than that. But you definitely would see your native bee species, which are kind of some of the things that people don't necessarily recognize as bees. They might be really small. They aren't colony forming, they're just individual bees. So,
As part of this, if we're attracting these bees, do we need to do anything to give them a place to land per se? I mean, to build a hive or whatever the case may be?
yeah, I haven't come across that like in my research that people are suggesting that. I think that there are, because it's adjacent, this is providing nectar and pollen for bees. And I would think that, if you have like a ground nesting bee, it can find that nesting habitat in the adjacent wooded area. Or, I feel like there's enough natural area nearby that could be an opportunity. As well as, you have, and again, I don't know like the distance traveled by the different species, but nearby you have the Civic Center prairie. So if there were something that could travel that far, then that provides a lot of the the stems, the grass stems that different kinds of bees might want to nest in. So not something that I had thought of, but maybe worth just double checking on. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question here from our chairperson who is watching from home with an illness. She's asking, do pollinator lawns minimize dandelion growth?
Not that I know of. I guess because they are, so I guess there's a difference between like if you just kind of don't maintain, then maybe you might see more of the dandelion growth. I would assume because this is going to still be maintained, it'll still be mowed at maybe like 3.5 to 5 max inches, that you won't be seeing too many dandelions seeding out.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you could have a pollinator lawn that if you want it to have dandelions in it, you could make that happen. But yeah, I guess I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Hopefully that answers her question.
Yeah.
Oh, this may sound like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When you were mentioning a little bit ago, about the possible hives for the bees, I was just what came to mind is if that were the case, is there a possibility that there could be, I guess, one species of bees, particularly if you got hives in the same vicinity, looking to overtake another, species of bees. I don't.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
The dominant species.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know the answer to that question, but I would assume that just with these, if it's attracting native species, I think that there wouldn't be too much like competition that we'd be noticing necessarily. And again, because a lot of these are solitary nesting, so they don't even have, like bumblebees they will nest in a colony, but other bee species, of which there are lots in Minnesota, they just are nesting individually. And then the honeybees are their own thing, which I didn't get the impression that these pollinator lawns are like attracting mostly honeybees. It seems like it's quite a wide array. So but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Something we could look into. Yeah.
Kind of tying in with his. This is also kind of a ridiculous question. Will this attract bees we don't want? Are there bees we don't want?
Yeah, no, not, so again, I haven't come across that in my research. And I don't know, I think that's all kind of a question for the user, right? Like what is something that you don't want? I guess maybe to preempt other questions, like I haven't heard that these are not like attracting wasps, for example, which is what people often worry about with getting stung. So I really haven't heard anything kind of those kinds of issues occurring or,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
That was good, because that's what came, one of the things came across my mind was wasps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that they would be kind of like, maybe treated like any other park area where it's like, you don't know what insects are gonna come to your park area, but these are mostly, as far as I understand, attracting just your kind of a wide diversity of native bees, some honeybees, and yeah, primarily.
How is success going to be measured?
Yeah, success will be measured by, once it's so with the early fall seeding, the Labor Day timing, we'll see some of the grasses, the fescues germinate. We're not gonna see the flowers germinate until the second growing season. So 2024 summer.
Okay.
So in 2024 summer, we'd be looking to see, is there an even, not super, super dense necessarily, but an even coverage of the Dutch white clover, for example. And so looking for that even coverage of that. So that would be success. Yeah.
I have no other questions from Commissioner Woolman, so.
I have I guess, less silly question. Is that how you phrased it? Do you foresee there being any potential impact to the market garden since it's so close, resource competition, anything like that?
Yeah. So, I guess in terms of like watering, I've talked to park staff or recreation staff about that, and there being a way to share the spigot and figure out a way to have two hoses going off of that so that if watering needs to happen at the same time, that we can coordinate that. And then in terms of like the foot traffic, I don't have the specifics worked out at this moment, but I think that we can tailor our kind of site. Like, so I had that whole orange area outlined as like where the seating will happen, but kind of like what is the activity that's happening around, Labor Day and then the germination period after that. And then based on what activity is happening, then we can kind of modify, and coordinate with the folks that are at the market garden about like, how to kind of share the space. And maybe, I think that we'll have to section some areas off while it's establishing, but again, like, we understand that it's a shared space, and so, we'll work with what works for the folks that are using the market garden area. So I think, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. And then I guess the surrounding area, because it's the dormant seeding, it's happening beginning of November, really, we won't have to worry about foot traffic in that area while that's, early November. Snow falls then, and then once spring comes around, then we won't be like sectioning that area off, I don't think.
Thank you.
Commissioners, if you have no other questions, this is an informational only, so if there are none, well, thank you for your time.
Yep.
Appreciate you presenting that information. Very interesting. Thank you.
If you have any
Thank you.
other questions, just, you can get in touch with me. I maybe should have left my contact information up here, but they can direct questions to you and then to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll give them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item under miscellaneous. So our next meeting is scheduled for April 17th of 2023. Anything else to add in that section?
That is correct. Sorry, Commissioners, due to scheduling conflicts and vacations, we had to move that one back a little bit into the month, so April 17th is our date.
All right, there's nothing else for miscellaneous. We'll move to our last agenda item, adjournment. And at this time, I'd like to request a call for adjournment of the March 6, 2023 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting.
So move.
Can we get a second?
Second.
All right. Motion passed. We'll adjourn.